Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. So Good Morning America is reporting that they've got an exclusive interview with one of the jurors from the Johnny Depp trial, which is a big deal. And I'll link that in the description below because I'm not going to go through it in full detail, but you can check it out from the original source, in the description. But one question a lot of people have been asking me is, do we think this is actually a juror? And that's a bit of a tough question because I've gone through the sort of the quotes that they have in some detail, and there was nothing that immediately jumped out at me as inconsistent with being a juror. And similarly, when I spent some time thinking about it and going through it and really trying to look for sort of a gotcha moment, I didn't spot anything where I went, ha, this is definitely not a juror because they said that thing. So this is consistent with somebody who's a juror. It could very well be a juror providing these details. The problem that I have is that this is also something that could have been somebody who watched a lot of trial coverage. Especially somebody who followed this on, from some of the commenters on sort of LawTube. Whether that's Legal Bites or Rakeda or Emily D. Baker, if you were following any of that sort of excellent coverage out there, you could have written this yourself. I certainly could have written this, and in fact, I could have included some additional, made up some juicy details or included some additional details that they didn't have here. Now, I mean, all we've got is quotes, and they're taking a lot of care to anonymize this juror. The only detail that they've revealed is that it's a male juror, so it's really hard to tell. They did say that they have confirmed that this is one of the jurors, and, I assume that they've got a process for that. It would have been really nice if they'd actually shown their work and told us how they did it. Like, listen, this person came forward, they said they're a juror, we were skeptical because of course we're going to be skeptical. So we looked at their juror summons, we compared that with their ID papers, we confirmed their picture with a courtroom observer, if they had a courtroom observer, which of course they didn't. But there's all these steps that they could have taken, and just telling us what steps they took would not in any way reveal who this juror is, right? That could be something that applies to any juror that they might look at. So it would have been really nice for them to tell us how they confirmed this person. Now, one other thing I just note here is that something that kind of niggles at me is that they mentioned that there was an issue in terms of, how Amber was making eye contact and how she was looking at them. They were saying that they were very uncomfortable when she was looking directly at the jury. Well, that's also a detail that was provided by that fake TikTok juror. And of course, this is a detail that was, that I have mentioned on Twitter and I have mentioned on several other people's streams and my own stream, that this is a detail that, anybody could have had, but it just kind of, it eats at me that little bit that, that this was mentioned by both people. Now, do I think that this is the fake TikTok juror? No, although that would be hilarious. I would laugh for days if Good Morning America clowned themselves like that. That would just be amazing. But I don't think so. If you want me to give odds on this, I would say 95% that I think that they spoke to a real juror. But I can only get to that 95%. I've still got that little doubt in the back of my mind. I just, the 95% is, I really think Good Morning America, given that this is such an important piece, would be careful. But I mean, we've seen news coverage of Jason Momoa's testimony, so it's hard to say. But again, I'm going to assume that this is actually a juror and that this is credible and so forth, just because that's where the odds sit. I can't say, as I said, 100%. Now, lots of people have also had the question of which juror is this? And people have all sorts of theories. And the answer is, I don't know. And the answer is also, I don't think you know either. And lots of people are saying that they think they know. They've got all sorts of theories as to why. And I don't think any of them really hold up. One of the problems that we've got here is, we've been told it's a male juror, which narrows it down to most of them. But it's going to be really hard, especially when we're talking about sort of selected quotations. Now, some people have leapt on certain choices of phrasing. I've seen people grasp on crocodile tears as one. But the one lots of people are really resting their hat on is sharp elbows. They're saying, oh, that sounds like an older person. And maybe, I mean, it isn't sort of a common, it's not common young person slang. And, lots of people have also said, oh, they've said that they don't have a Twitter account, so they've got to be older. Well, maybe, or maybe not. I mean, it's really hard to say necessarily. The problem I have with the sort of sharp elbows thing is, yeah, it's a bit of odd language, but I'm given to odd language at times. I mean, sometimes my word choice is strange because I grew up reading old books and watching the BBC, and these experiences are out there. You can't necessarily say that somebody didn't grow up reading Lovecraft and Tolkien and get shaped by that in some fashion. So that's, a possibility. And the other thing is that let's assume that that sharp elbows language is definitely something that comes from an older guy. And that's leading a lot of people to say, oh, it's got to be Juror 6 because that's the oldest guy. Well, I mean, maybe Juror 9 was also, and this is, relying on their seat placements, not their official court numbers. But Juror 9 was also a bit older, maybe. But this also could be a turn of phrase from somebody who, say, learned English as a second language and is borrowing idioms from another language. That's also possible. Or it could be somebody who happened to sit in a room with somebody who used that turn of phrase and thought, man, that's a clever turn of phrase. And when you see it in the context here, it is a clever turn of phrase, right? It's saying that they had sharp elbows versus being sharp. That's the kind of thing that you might pick up from, sorry, I hope that wasn't too loud. That's the kind of thing that you might pick up from another juror in deliberations and borrow. So I don't think that we can say conclusively to any degree of certainty which juror this is. I think it's actually a little bit irresponsible for some, for people, because there's some people out there going, oh, it's definitely this juror. And they might be right, but they might also be wrong. We don't have the details here. And I said this on Twitter, and I'll repeat it in this video. One of the most important things when you're trying to gauge, a source of information is looking at the gaps, because everybody has places where they just don't know things and where, in fact, you can't know things. Where you just can't possibly get to a conclusion. I think we're in that place here. And somebody who is, the best sources of information are going to be the people who will tell you that they don't know something, rather than people who will fill things in and sort of invent stuff to sort of fill in those gaps. That, I think, is a problem. There's a lot of people sort of, commenting on that. I don't know what's going on here. And as I said, I'm assuming it's an actual juror simply because I'm really just resting on Good Morning America and their desire not to burn their reputation to the ground. Because that's really what this would do. If it came out that they had actually not interviewed a real juror, that they'd interviewed a prankster, and especially if they interviewed that TikTok prankster, oh man, that would just be a major black eye for their reputation. So I'm assuming they're being careful. But I didn't learn anything from this at the end of the day. This might have confirmed the things that I already thought from looking at this and going, okay, yes, those were key moments, the moments when I saw the jury nodding their heads and whatever else. But I can't say that there was anything really that I couldn't have gotten elsewhere. And that's sort of a concerning moment. I mean, maybe this just confirms that the people out there who were reporting on this were right. And I mean, I love the notion of a juror coming out and saying, Runkle, you were right about all this stuff. And, that the people around you who you also listen to for information, they were also right about all this stuff. I mean, that's really, that's kind of a nice warm feeling. It's kind of, a nice pat on the shoulder. But I get nervous whenever something is just that nice. The universe is not always a friendly place, and I would whenever something is just too comforting and too agreeable, it makes me think, am I just buying this because of that? Is this just something that just appeals to me, and so I'm not looking at it as skeptically as I could have? That's the worry I have here. Now, if we assume that this juror is correct, and again, I don't think we know which juror it is, I mean, this is really consistent to a lot of what has been said. The details about, it's really unsurprising if the jurors thought that it was a big deal, the, pledged versus donated. That was such an embarrassing moment for Amber Heard on the stand. It was just such a bad moment. When we had things, in terms of the details of the photo, right? When they say that the photo was a major issue, of course it was. I mean, there was a whole lot of testimony on it. It was one of those sort of, I call them Matlock moments, where you can catch a witness in an obvious lie and just, clearly show that there's some fuckery going on, as Emily D. Baker would say. But yeah, I know that this is not going to be satisfying to a lot of people. A lot of people are going to say, Runkle, we want definitive answers. And I don't have definitive answers for you. And I'm concerned. That's sort of where things go there. Yeah, I'll talk about this and some other stuff on sort of a live stream when I can. The next time I anticipate being able to do a live stream is probably Monday, and I encourage you guys to check that out. I'm going to be joined by Scott Cardinal, who was also there. I'll ask him about this too. We can talk a bit about, about these moments. He was also there in the courtroom, so he's another sort of person with eyes on the jury, and he can tell you, if he thinks that this makes sense. So you can have a second set of views on that. I got my silver play button from YouTube, so I'm planning on doing sort of the big unboxing on that Monday live stream. So tune in for that. And yeah, there might be some other people joining. I'm still sort of working that out. But yeah, I guess these are my thoughts. A lot of people have asked me kind of to talk about this one. Yeah. I also think ultimately, let's say I had some detail here where I could just definitively pick out which juror it is. I mean, this juror has asked for anonymity, and if I could definitively pick out the juror, I would tell you that, and I'd at least tell you I know which juror it is, and I don't. But it's I'd also really have to think on whether I wanted to share that detail, just because, I mean, these jurors went through a lot, and they, did a great service to justice and the court system and so forth, right? They will have suffered for it. It's gotta, it's not a fun experience necessarily being in there and tasked with these difficult questions and having to face the possibility that you're going to have angry members of the public. I mean, whichever, even though Johnny Depp is clearly the more popular side, at least among people who watch the trial through and through, there's definitely going to be some people who feel that the court decision should have gone the other way and might, for instance, send people hate mail. So I'd be a little cautious about that. I would definitely tell you if I thought I knew which juror it was, but I'd have to think really hard on whether or not I should reveal my thoughts on that. But thankfully, that's not where we are. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Canada's National Firearms Association, the CCFR, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association; at the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Marc Olivier Damour; and at the $20 level, Mick Tane, Mark, Jane Babin Luxor, Haywire, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Bruno R., and Andrew Elsich, as well as Vicky Shuchuk, I think. I'm going to have to send a message and get that clarified, because I hate not getting people's names right. All right, and thank you as well to the $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Lots of people always in the comments ask me, where did I get this song? It's a song called Dance, is it Dance with Fire or Dance in Fire? that I get through Envato Elements, which is a company that I pay just so that I can use art assets and music assets. If you see stock video or stock audio or a picture in this, it's either something I took myself or more likely it's something I licensed through them. All right, thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge, and see you next time, and hopefully see you on Monday.